Hello, my name is Eric Hibbard, and I've been asked to make a few comments about security, which is a topic that is near and dear to my heart, but not necessarily everybody else's. I'd like to start by acknowledging that, by and large, security is a people problem, in that we have individuals who want to perpetrate some set of harassment, crimes, exploratory activities, whatever you want to call it, against another group of individuals and systems who would prefer not participating in such adventures. And I don't mean to make light of it, but in many instances, there's this cat and mouse game, as it's sometimes referred to. But in reality, it's actually much more malicious than a simple cat and mouse game. So, from a threat landscape perspective, what we're dealing with is a set of players who are, by and large, well equipped, well trained and educated, highly motivated. Money is often the instrument of motivation, either directly or indirectly. And they're operating against another set of individuals, in some cases people like myself, but in other cases it's your average cyber user, if you will. And the goal is to get at whatever the sort of the average user organization has in a way to exploit it. The manner in which they do this changes over time. They adjust and adapt based on new technologies coming in. They adjust to reflect changes in the defensive tactics, so they come at it with counterattacks, if you will. So your latest defenses may in fact have their own sets of problems, which then potentially get exploited. So this ongoing series of attacks against whatever your cyber infrastructure, your tools, your applications, and your individuals is requiring a constant monitoring and response. Security is absolutely not a one and done kind of problem. You don't fire it up like a project and walk away from it when you're done, because as fast as you've essentially put something in place, the attackers have moved to their next approach to dealing with that. So this is important to keep in mind. Over time, this threat landscape and what the attackers are doing periodically will touch a nerve. Something will occur that necessitates a response, often from regulators or governments, because whatever has been done is perceived as being so outrageous, so outlandish, that there must be a response. In these kind of scenarios, we characterize as black swan events, and it's not necessarily that the attacks have been all of a sudden a spike. It's just that for some reason, one of them, or maybe a series of them, have been considered to be extremely outrageous, and as such, we see regulations and government reactions to try and deal with the situation. Ironically, those actions by the regulators and the governments are often not very effective. And part of the reason is, of course, the threat landscape is changing, the technologies are changing, the defenses are changing, and anytime you try to lay down a specific regulation to deal with that, you end up using very generic language like reasonable security, which in the end is subject to interpretation by you or a good lawyer, depending on the perspective, and it's not necessarily all that productive. because what we're seeing is this change, and the regulation is not keeping up with it. Likewise, we have standards that attempt to help with this. So maybe doing a characterization what might be best practices, for example. But again, the amount of time it takes to develop some of these standards can be measured in years, not days or weeks, which is often the time scale that attackers are dealing with. So we're seeing a regulatory space that's not keeping up. We're seeing standards that are attempting to deal with some of the issues, but it's a challenging game, especially when one considers the introduction of IoT more broadly into a variety of sectors, whether it's for individual use or in industrial setting. There are lots of interesting untested issues from a security perspective that reside in with these technologies. When combined with others like cloud computing and artificial intelligence, big data, the list is long and distinguished. It creates a very broad base that an attacker can essentially go at, and all they need to do is find one weak spot in whatever defenses that you put up to essentially get in and do harm, breach data, whatever it is that their desire is. So what this means is we as individuals really have an obligation to understand what we can do, and to actually try and do that, to be a contributor, a positive contribution to the general benefit of cyberspace, if you will, as opposed to actions that actually contribute, make it easier for these attackers to essentially get in. And it's not just so much they get into your personal computer or they get into your organization's computer, but they can use both of those to essentially attack others. So, and there can in some cases be, responsibilities for not doing, as some of the regulations say, reasonable security. If you haven't done your part, you could be in as much trouble as the attackers themselves, because many of the regulations, they're not able to reach the attackers, and so sometimes the victim is also punished in the spirit of trying to motivate certain behaviors. As I said, trying to contribute to the betterment. Well, if you fail to do your part, there can be consequences, so to speak. So it's important to understand that we are dealing with an ever-evolving situation. It's all about people, those that are attacking you, your organizations, in terms of defending. Are you taking it serious enough, and are you in a position to basically deal with the problems when they arrive? For example, something like ransomware. Have you thought through in advance of what's necessary to survive such an adventure? Are you prepared to come up after an attack of that nature? So this requires some strategic thought, as well as training of individuals to help guard against even being infected in the first place. But one must assume that it's not a matter of if you will be attacked, just a matter of when. So hopefully this has spurred you on to consider things that you can do from a security perspective. And I wish you well in your endeavors, and hope you never encounter some of the more nasty attacks that we are seeing in the wild, and we anticipate will be arriving in the not too distant future. Thank you for your time.